there's so much turnover here with this organization. You're one of the few constants from last year to this year. You had the unique perspective of seeing what it looked like to what it looks like now. How different is it?
I think it's very different. Like it was in 2003 when we first got here. Obviously, I didn't know what it was like prior to then, but you can just feel the stimulation of energy, the injection of energy that kind of gets pumped back into someplace. I think with the way that Zach has changed things around, whether it be from aesthetics in the locker room, aesthetics in meeting rooms, the coaching floor where we hold our meetings, the way we meet, all that's completely new. And so I think there's a certain level of, I won't call it uneasiness, but change. And anytime there's change, it becomes a stimulation. And I've really seen that in our players. Our players are really excited. There's a new level of energy on the field, I think. And I think it's going to happen anytime there's the turnover that we've had. So it's an exciting time. I feel very good. It rejuvenates me too. So I'm very excited to get going here.
A word I keep hearing, I heard it multiple times from you, I've heard it from the locker room, from the players, guys who have been around here a long time, the word energy. Mm-hmm. It's legitimate. There is different energy.
Oh, it's there. It's definitely there. And hopefully we can sustain that. Sometimes, like it is, it's always unique. The first couple of days of training camp practice, everybody's blaring, ready to go. Guys are flying all over the field. Then training camp, the training camp legs hit, and the energy level starts to spiral backward a little bit. I think Zach's come up with a good plan to try to maintain that as best we can. There's going to be certain levels of attrition that we have, but I think he's got to come up with a good plan to try to help maintain that, lessen the load maybe, but work smart. Still be efficient, but work smart. And so hopefully we'll be able to maintain that all the way through, up into January.
I want to dive into that word change because it isn't just a coaching staff change here in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. It's the way things have changed in the time you've been here since 2003 until now. How has your job changed in 16, 17 years, the way you coach guys and the way you get guys ready for Sundays? Obviously, rules change, players change. How have you changed?
Well, hopefully I've gotten smarter. When I first came here, I was 28, 29 years old. I can't even remember now. It's been so long. But I probably didn't know a whole lot then. I feel like I know a little bit more than what I did when I first got here. I think the biggest thing is the way that the way you deal with players. Players have really changed, over time. And I think the biggest part is social media. With the different ways and avenues that people gather and gain information. It's so much faster now than it used to be. And I think things happen around the league and players know instantaneously because it's in real time. One of the big things that I have to deal with in my area is like you're talking about, the rules changes. That's really kept me on my toes over the course of the past 5 years. There have been some monumental changes in the kicking game.
It seems like they change it most in the kicking game than anywhere else.
Yeah, and I think it's it's all in an effort to increase player safety. Yeah. They try to. I was a part of a couple of these committees that helped change, like the kickoff rule, to the rules we have now that implemented last year, and fortunately they got put in place and they're permanent now. It was on a one-year basis a year ago, but they're permanent now. So I've been in the middle of a lot of that over the course of the last couple of years. I feel fortunate to have been a part of that stuff, and I hope it's all in an effort to make the game safer, but yet still make it exciting. That's a very fine line that you walk. I was a part when I first got in the league of those violent hits, were celebrated. That was a big deal. Now it's something that I don't think anybody, certainly the league doesn't want to see. They're trying to take it out of the game. And I understand it. When you're dealing with players' lives and you're dealing with their health. We want to try to keep these guys in it as long as we can. So there's been a lot since I first got here that's changed. The one thing I think's remained constant is my passion and my desire to help these players be the best that they can be. That's my number one job is to make them believe that they can do things that they didn't at one time think they could. And I think that's been the same. That's one constant.
Been looking forward to asking you this question because you were here for a year one, and you're here again for a year one of a new coaching staff. Is there a grace period for a new coaching staff to get their feet wet? Is there a learning curve that is allowed in the NFL for when an organization does change over like the Bengals have? That the expectations aren't as high this year, that it's okay, coaching staff can come in here and learn a little bit before we really start to expect them to be successful? Or is it you're in the NFL, you're expected to win right away no matter if it's year 1 or not?
Well, I think that there's probably 2 levels of that. The expectations inside those white walls down there are super high, and I don't think there's the expectations ever get lowered in that area. I think your leaders have to, raise up the level of what is perceived to be good, what's not good, the level of play. We as coaches have to hold them accountable to that, but I don't think there's ever a lowered level of expectation. Or a lower level of confidence or competition ever. I mean, it's what drives athletics. It's what drives competition. And I think these guys do it at the highest level. I know we as coaches do it at the highest level too. We come here to do one thing, that's to win games. And that's anything short of that is a failure. And so, we live and die every Sunday night, or at least I do live and die with a win or loss. And not only win or loss, but more importantly, how my units play. Do we contribute to the win or do we contribute to the loss? And so the competitive part of that drives me to make sure our guys are successful, which ultimately makes our units successful, and then ultimately helps the team be successful. So downstairs, that level of expectation is as high as it's ever been.
That up and down, though, the wins, the losses, the failure, the success, does that ever drive you to want to leave the game and do something that maybe isn't so emotional?
When I've always told my wife that when I stand out there and whoever plays the national anthem, and if the hair doesn't raise up on my arm, then I'll know it's time. I've had to learn, and this is probably one of the things that you talked about from when I first got here. I've learned to try to stay level and not go to the peaks and valleys. I've learned to enjoy the peaks, but I learned to minimize the valleys. And but the one thing that I do know is the second that hair doesn't stand up on my arm anymore at the national anthem, I'll know it's time to do something different.
Still happens for you?
Every day.
Every time?
Every Sunday at 1 o'clock it happens. And I'll know it's time. When the tingling doesn't happen in my arms, I'll know it's time for me to do something else. But until then, I'm good.
Coaches, guys are coming in trying to compete for a spot on the 53-man roster by the end of training camp. Just how important is it to, and do you and the rest of the coaching staff stress to them that while you're coming in trying to compete on offense and defense, that special teams is really a critical area and an area that really matters?
I think that's the most important. I think it's probably the number one part of my job is to make these, especially some of these young guys, understand that's how they're going to make the team. They can make as many plays as they want offensively and defensively. We could have a receiver go out and catch 30 balls in the preseason, but he's not jumping in front of A.J. Green. And so they've got to understand that they've got to contribute on punt or on punt return, on kickoff and kickoff return. They've got to be a viable contender for that spot. We only have so many receivers that we can keep, so many running backs we can keep, so many safeties, so many corners. And they've got to be able to crack that top 9 or 10 DBs, and they've got to be a viable producer in those areas. And if they're not, they're going to be, like a lot of guys that have been in the past, are going to realize it, but it's going to be too late. By the time the third preseason game rolls around and if they don't understand the importance of it, then it's too late. We're going to move on to someone else. So I think that's how a lot of these guys have to understand they can make a great living by playing on fourth down, by playing on special teams, and it's helping us win games. And I think that also helps from, the head coach has to help deliver that message too, because he's the most important one.
Along with Zach, do you notice or encourage even some of the veterans and staples on your special teams unit trying to hone in on that importance that, it's more about just going out and competing at receiver or safety?
Yeah, I think we found over the course of the last couple of years we've had a lot of injuries, and so there have been a lot of guys get a lot of playing time, but even some of our veteran guys have really shown a distinct willingness to want to do more, to try to expand their role. We've had, whether it's Giovanni Bernard, trying to expand his role, to playing in coverage, even playing on the punt team. And it opens so many doors. When you put a viable player back there, running back, and is your personal protector, it opens up so many different options for you. Or whether it's a Preston Brown or a B.W. Webb or a Tyler Boyd, whoever it may be. There's a lot of veteran players who also want to contribute. I think it shows their leadership and the team first attitude that we're looking for out of everybody.